Hey guys, welcome back to the Fergie Time podcast. Today, I will be using my handy dandy tier list to rank every Chelsea player. Our first player on this list is Kepa. So, Kepa came in 2 seasons ago for a transfer fee of £71 million, making him the most expensive goalkeeper ever. Now, 2 years later, we're looking back on it, and it was an absolute massive mistake. Kepa has struggled. Like, we're talking, he has a save percentage of 58%, which is worst among starting goalkeepers in the Premier League. He has a bad attitude. We saw it last year, and he just doesn't seem like someone who plays for the badge. So, in my opinion, it is time for Kepa to move on from Chelsea Football Club. Our next player is Marco Van Ginkel. So, Van Ginkel has had a really interesting career. It just hasn't panned out for him. He's clearly a talented guy, but then he's had really good loan spells at PSV, but injuries have come back to bite him, hasn't performed necessarily at Chelsea, and now we're talking since 2018, he's been injured for a really long period of time, still hasn't returned. With his contract expiring this summer, I think there's a lot of talent there, but he's 27 years old. I think it's time for him to move on as well. Next, we have N'Golo Kanté. Conte has not had his greatest season, we can definitely say that. Probably one of his worst just because of some injury battles. I think he's not as good as an 8 as he has as a 6, and they've had to adjust that with Jorginho there. But in my opinion, Conte is still considered one of the best midfielders in the world. And even when he does play for Chelsea now, you see a massive boost just because he does so much on both ends of the pitch, right? He's countering, but he's also, so much of it is just him winning the ball back for them. So I'm going to put Conte in world class. 1 season cannot be a deterrent for me. Reece James. So Reece James, a very, very good young player, has made a fantastic impression with pinpoint crossing, really good passing, and then good 1v1 defending using his strength and body to his advantage. James has only played 17 matches in the Premier League, so I'm hesitant to put him in really good, even though that's where I think his potential is. So I'm going to put him into solid. Kurt Zouma. If you follow the podcast, you know I'm not Zouma's biggest fan. I don't love his style of play, but I have to give credit where it is due. So Zouma is very good in the air. He's a very good, strong, fast, physical defender. He's good at his job as being a center back. That said, with Chelsea's style of play, he isn't very good on the ball. And, I mean, we've seen him be quite inconsistent at times this year. Like, he's not the most reliable back there, especially with the style that Lampard wants to play. And I think, although he's still young and can develop his game. Right now, I'm going to throw Zouma in inconsistent. That might be a bit harsh, but I think it's the right decision. Ross Barkley. Ross Barkley missed a lot of the season with injury, but we're going to use some of his history to make this decision. So he didn't have the best season even when he came back, just because I think he was getting back into the swing of things, but started to show a really strong ending when the season, right when it got cut off, he started to hit a good run of form. He had 3 assists in his 13 appearances, not bad. Wanted him to attribute more to the attacking because that's what he's known to do, but looking back on his past and then pairing that with some of the inconsistency we've seen recently, I'm going to throw him in solid. Next up, we have Andreas Christensen, and although many of you may have thought I was harsh on Zouma, I think Christensen I'm pretty favorable for, and this is because he fits Chelsea's style well. He's a passing-oriented center back, and that fits the way they play well. He completed 90% of his passes this season, which is fantastic. He's a solid defender, but isn't the fastest, isn't the strongest. He relies a lot on reading the game, but I think he's good enough at that to be serviceable in that aspect, and then also he is very good in the air. Makes good advantage of his height. So I'm going to throw him into solid. Pedro, not much to say on this one. He already announced that he will be terminating his contract with Chelsea at the end of the season. He only had 9 appearances this year. 1 goal, was pretty awful. Struggled with injury. I wonder if that was him just basically taking some matches off because he wanted to be out of the club. But he's going to go and time to move on. Giroud, this is an interesting one. I may be looking a little into the future with this one, but it's very hard to say because Giroud didn't appear much this season. He only, I think, had roughly 9 appearances, and most of it was the second half of the season because Lampard really was not feeling him at the beginning. But Giroud started to come back into the side, and now Chelsea are looking to re-sign him. I would caution against that because, one, he is 33 years old, so he's gonna age, and Giroud is not a player that will age well. He's already very slow, so I don't think his legs will be able to keep up with the Premier League game. And he didn't have his best season. Like, he did Giroud type things, but it's just getting worse and worse each year. So I'm gonna throw him into consistent just because he didn't get enough match time for me to put him in solid, even though I think if he had, he would have been there. This is a big one, being American, Christian Pulisic. So Pulisic is another player that struggled a lot with injury this year, but let me add, he did end the season off with 16 matches, 5 goals, 2 assists, and many of you were like, oh, for that price tag, that's pretty shocking. No, he is a 21-year-old kid who's transitioned to the Premier League, one of the toughest leagues in the world, and I think has done a serviceable job. I think he will vastly improve next year. I believe Pulisic could be in the very good category in years to come. Right now, I am going to throw him into solid. Billy Gilmore, a player who I believe should have his own category. So, I believe one day this kid could be world class, and maybe I'm a little biased being Scottish, but I genuinely believe it. Looking at his appearances this year with Chelsea, only 3 of them, but impressed a ton. Also had an appearance in the FA Cup against Liverpool, was fantastic. In the Premier League too, he had 11 matches, 2 goals, 4 assists. Known as the Scottish Xavi. I mean, I'm not going to put him in very good or world class at this point because obviously he's not. But I'm going to put him in solid because I think his bright future and potential brings it up from someone who you would say would be inconsistent. I'm going to bring him up to solid. Next up, we have Mason Mount. A breakout season for him. 24 appearances, 6 goals, 4 assists. A fantastic passer in the final third. Makes really creative runs that open space for his teammates and gets him in behind. Also, fantastic at pressing. Is really good at nicking the ball off his opponents. And finally, it's just a fox in the box. Like, if he gets the ball at his feet in the 6-yard box to the 18, I mean, he's putting it in the back of the net. Mount, for me, is going to go in very good because he's had a season that shows that he's going to be a star for years to come. Jorginho, a deep-lying playmaker who I think is often underappreciated because he is the pivot in Chelsea's play right now. And he is very good. Fantastic technical ability and can do a little bit of all. He can get up and down too. He can be a little more box to box if he likes. This season, I think, had 4 goals, 2 assists. That's not his main thing. It's more just having a smooth transition through the midfield and using him as a pivot. And I think he's often underappreciated because he doesn't show up that much on the score sheet. But I'm going to put him into very good. Marcus Alonso initially fell out with Lampard at the beginning of the season. Lampard criticized him for not working hard enough in training, but in the second half of the season, Alonso came alive, finally actually getting some appearances. Ended off with 11 appearances, 4 goals, 2 assists. Fantastic numbers from a fullback. He's the definition of a modern-day fullback. Gets forward, gets in the box, can score, can create. He's really, really good at what he does. And on top of that, I think Alonso is just a fantastic crosser of the football. There's not many like him. I'm going to throw him into solid because he didn't appear that much, but he didn't end up winning that left back position over Emerson. So he goes into solid for me. Next, we have Tomori. This may be a look more into the future, this ranking by me, but I think he's a really, really good player. Athletic, fast, strong, good on the ball. He struggles a bit in the air, and did some questionable things just because he's young. That's just what comes with being a young defender. But overall, was really, really impressed by him. And I think you could throw him in inconsistent because he didn't necessarily get the most appearances. But I think him being only 22, the future is bright for this kid. I'm going to throw him into solid. Next up, we have Willy Caballero. So I said Kepa was the worst starting goalkeeper just from a save percentage standpoint. Caballero is even worse than Kepa. His reflexes are slow. He's old. He's slow. It's time for him to move on. There's not much more to say about that. You can even see it when the balls just hit at him. He just moves slowly and has had a fantastic career, but he is not a Chelsea quality player anymore. Emerson, a really well-rounded fullback, a solid player, but fell out of favor with Lampard. Didn't appear much in the second half of the season after starting majority of the games at the beginning. I think only ended up with 14 appearances and contributed a lot less than Alonso going forward. So I think in the right situation, Emerson is definitely a solid player, and I think he still is a solid player, but just looking at the season at Chelsea and what Lampard thought of him, towards the end, he lost his spot, so I'm going to have to throw him in inconsistent. Kovacic, in 25 matches, had 1 goal, 3 assists. He's a really good box-to-box midfielder. I think he has the potential to be in the very good category, but he hasn't shown it yet. He has nice feet, nice distribution, but he hasn't really gotten into the final third and been effective in the final third. And he's criticized a lot amongst Chelsea fans for that because that's what he was supposed to be able to do, was be really good in that goal scoring area, final third area, and he hasn't done it. So I'm going to have to put him in solid right now. He needs to, if he wants to take that next step in his game, he's going to have to become better at scoring and just doing more in the final third. This year we had a typical season from Willian. I think 28 appearances, 5 goals, 5 assisted, Willian type things. Creative in the final third, can cut onto his right foot really nicely, but he never blows you away. He's just a very solid winger, and I think he has to go in the solid category. Maybe moving on from Chelsea after this season, but had a good year for what you expect from Willian. Callum Hudson-Odoi, this one's going to be premature, but this is because I think this kid has star power potential. I think 5 years from now, he could be in the world-class category. Hudson-Odoi came off a really bad Achilles injury, so it was a slow start for him. He subbed on in a bunch of his appearances. In 17 appearances, had 1 goal, 4 assists. But you saw flashes of what he could be, and I think it's pretty much a lock that he will be a star player in the future. I'm going to throw him in solid. I probably should have him in inconsistent, but I think with the star power in his future and how bright it is, him only being 19 years old, I think solid's where I got to put him so I don't look like an absolute dunce 3 years from now. Ruben Loftus-Cheek missed all of the season due to injury, had a really good prior season. The 2018-2019 season was fantastic for Chelsea, was good at Crystal Palace the year before, but we haven't seen it recent enough. I'm going to throw him in inconsistent because of injuries. I think is a really serviceable player in the Premier League, but we're going to need to see recent form to put him into solid. Next up, we have Rudiger. He missed 18 matches due to injury, so it's hard to put him in the solid category. Like Zuma, I think he's right in between the two. Very strong defender, very fast and physical, likes to lump the ball forward, is a bit predictable and needs to improve his feet. And I think with the matches he missed and also just being not so good on the ball, which hurts Chelsea, just with the style of play that they do play, I'm going to throw him in inconsistent. I think has still a lot of room to grow, and I think could be a player next season that we see is in solid. Batshuayi, he had an opportunity this year to become Chelsea's leading striker after Abraham went down, but lost his job to Giroud because he only scored 1 goal and had 1 assist in 16 matches. He's been at the club for a while now. He's done really well on loan spells, so I think it's time for him to move on, because I think once he moves on, he can find somewhere where he can settle in and be the leader of the strike line. It'll never be Chelsea, though, and I know he gets good wages there, but I think the club needs to get him off the books because it was clear this year he got his opportunity, didn't take it, time to move on. Tammy Abraham, I think 25 appearances, 13 goals, 4 assists, was an absolute fantastic player. I had doubts coming into the season, but he proved me wrong. He's going to be a goal scorer for years to come in the Premier League, right? I don't want to jump the gun. There's no way he's in world class yet. We've only seen 1 good season from him, but I think he's head and shoulders above some of these solid players just because the amount of goals he's scored. You can tell he has a knack for the back of the net. He's going in the very good category for me. Finally, we have Cesar Azpilicueta, a player a couple of years ago would have been in the very good category. Still Chelsea's captain, still got a lot of appearances, which means Lampard's still seeing some good things from him, but highly criticized, especially in the last couple months. Hasn't really looked himself. You can start to see the signs of age, and Chelsea fans were really, really pissed off at him for a few weeks. I'm going to throw him in solid because I really feel like he's in between very good. He's coming off this very good pedestal that he was on, and I think he's starting to drop now. So I think putting him in inconsistent would be an overreaction, but I think solid is about where he is. And I think in a year's time or two, we could start to see him get edged out of this Chelsea side. All right, guys, this is my ranking for every current Chelsea player. Please let me know what you think of my rankings in the comments. Where did I go right? Where did I go wrong? Anyways, if you didn't enjoy the video, make sure to hit the like button. Subscribe. We're trying to move past 2K subscribers. Thank you and take it easy. Peace.